On the outskirts of the old fishing town called Caldermouth stood a house forgotten by time. Its brick walls were covered in thick moss, and the windows had long lost their glassy sheen, replaced by boards haphazardly nailed to the frames to keep the darkness inside. This house once belonged to the Mason family, well-known fishermen in the town, who mysteriously disappeared several decades ago. Since then, ominous rumors had surrounded the house. Some spoke of a curse laid upon the family, while others whispered of strange sounds coming from the basement, as if the sea itself was trying to break free onto the land. One day, a strange man arrived in the town. He was tall, with a pale face and eyes hidden behind dark glasses. He wore a long black coat that fell to his boots. His name was Victor Drake, and he was a scholar who studied ancient legends and myths related to the sea's depths. Victor's arrival in Caldermouth sparked curiosity among the locals, for no one came to these parts without a specific purpose. Drake rented a small room at the local inn, but all his thoughts were consumed by the Mason house and the mysterious disappearance of the family. Victor had long been researching myths and legends about a creature that, according to tales, dwelled in the underwater depths near Caldermouth. This creature was said to have the power to draw people to itself, pulling them into its cold embrace, from which there was no return. The scholar believed that the Mason house held the key to unlocking this myth. The next day, Victor set out for the house. As he approached the gates, he felt a slight chill run down his spine. The house looked lifeless, but there was something about it that caused unease. Ignoring his premonitions, Drake resolutely opened the creaking gate and stepped onto the overgrown path leading to the front door. When he entered, the air inside felt damp and musty, as if the house had been closed up for a long time. Victor looked around. Old newspapers lay scattered on the floor, spiders spun their webs in the corners, and in the fireplace, the ashes from the last fire, which had burned out many years ago, still lay. Victor decided to start with the basement, about which the locals had spoken so much. Descending the steep stairs, he found himself in a dark room that smelled of dampness and sea salt. Victor turned on his flashlight and began examining the walls. Suddenly, his gaze fell upon strange symbols carved into the stones. These symbols resembled ancient runes, but they were distorted and deformed, as if they had been carved under the influence of a force far older than the stone itself. Suddenly, Victor felt the floor beneath him start to tremble. Water began slowly seeping out from under the boards, filling the basement. The scholar stepped back, trying to understand what was happening, but his foot slipped and he fell. As he got up, he noticed that the water on the floor was already covering his ankles and rising higher. Panic seized him, but instead of rushing to the exit, Victor felt an invisible force pulling him back. For a moment, it seemed to him that eyes were watching him from the water. Huge, black eyes, like bottomless wells. These eyes seemed to hypnotize him, preventing him from moving. The water was already up to his waist, and Victor felt something cold grab his leg. With difficulty, he broke away from the gaze and tried to escape from the icy grasp of the sea depths, but he couldn't. The creature lurking in the shadows began to take hold of his mind, making him forget everything that was on the surface. The last thing Victor saw before the darkness engulfed him was the ceiling of the basement receding above, and the light from his flashlight falling to the floor, revealing a deep shadow that was consuming everything in its path. Victor Drake disappeared as mysteriously as the Mason family, but his story became yet another legend to be told in Caldermouth. No one ever again attempted to explore the house on the outskirts of town. It remained abandoned, just as before, but now it was spoken of as a place where a shadow lives, drawing into itself anyone who dares to enter. The sea always takes back what it claims, and the Mason house is just one of its tentacles, slowly and inexorably pulling people into its depths.